Hello and welcome to North Central Journal. I'm Scott May, and we are on location with Marion Luoma, the caretaker of the SK Pierce Victorian Mansion here in South Gardner. Marion,
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
We see each other often, but usually in another location.
Yep.
But here we are at the SK Pierce Victorian Mansion, which lately has got a lot of people buzzing.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to a lot of information about the mansion. We want to begin with, though, having you tell us who Sylvester Knowlton Pierce was, SK Pierce.
SK Pierce actually worked at the factory across the street. Mm-hmm. He worked there when he was 14 years old up until an adult when he died. He actually built this house that we're in right now for his love of his life, Susan, and tragically she died 2 weeks after it was finished. But he was a chair manufacturer. Mm-hmm. A lot of the carvings and stuff you'll see through the house is things that he did. And
Gardner, known for many years as Chair City. Mm-hmm. I think he was instrumental in at least getting that on people's minds, and of course the chair business in Gardner grew exponentially over the years. When did SK Pierce build the mansion?
He built it in 1875. Took about 2 years to build it, to finish it. Over 200 men working on it all the time.
And what are the dimensions? The place is huge, and we are going to take a walk through just so our viewers can get a
6,661 square feet. 6,661.
And how many floors?
4.
4 floors?
Including the basement, yeah. Uh-huh. And a tower.
Now, you mentioned his first wife, Susan.
Yeah.
They moved into the mansion, and sadly, she passed away.
2 weeks after it was finished. She didn't even get to enjoy it. Yeah. She had syphilis.
And I was going to ask you, was anything unusual about her death? Syphilis.
She was sick for a while, I guess, and they were looking for something to help her, a cure, and she just ended up dying 2 weeks after it was finished. Sad.
So Mr. Pierce remarried, and then he passed away in 1888?
1888, yeah. He remarried Ellen.
Ellen?
And she was actually the same age as his son. They were 28 years old.
Oh, really? No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. Big difference, like a 30-year difference.
So what happened to the property when Mr. Pierce passed away?
He actually willed it to his wife.
Okay.
Back then, you didn't do that. The women didn't get anything. Mm-hmm. So he willed it to Ellen, and Frank wasn't happy. So Frank took her to court, and he lost.
Frank, one of the sons?
One of the sons, the oldest son. He actually wanted to take custody of both children also through Ellen and Mr. Pierce. And he lost in court in the 1800s, and that's not usual. That's very unusual, actually, for a woman to win something.
The boys and their stepmom were all living here.
All here.
Who ran the furniture business after Mr. Pierce passed away?
She did. And the boys, and Frank, They ran it. The boys were younger. Yep. The 2 boys that were hers and Mr. Pierce's, Edward and Stuart, they were younger. But Frank was the oldest, and he helped run it. And then as the kids got older, then they ran it.
Did the siblings get along well? From what you've heard?
From what I heard, no. But then again, and later on in life, they did. Yes.
So we've got a young family, young men running a furniture business after their dad passes away. Mm-hmm. We've got this huge building that they're also living in. And we run into the Great Depression.
We do.
And what happened to the family at that point?
They actually, with the Depression, the factory started not doing as well, of course. Mm-hmm. So she opened up this house as a Victorian Inn to make money. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the Depression was over, and went back to their house. And they lived here as a family again. But now the kids are older, and I know that Frank lived a couple houses down the street here. Mm-hmm. Edward and Stuart had moved on. So, and then later on, Edward came back and had the house.
When Ellen passed away, the property reverted to the boys?
Yep, to the boys, yep.
And at one point, this was opened up as a boarding house? Is that what happened?
After Ellen passed, Frank, Stuart passed, Edward had it in the 50s. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't doing very well, so he opened up as a boarding house. And people stayed here for longer periods of time.
So we'll jump ahead now to 1963. Yeah. And the mansion is still a boarding house. Mm-hmm. Tell us the story about the death of Eno.
Eno actually, he was a mechanic. Uh-huh. He smoked and he drank. He went to sleep upstairs in the bedroom and was smoking and drinking. He fell asleep and he burnt to death. Yeah, April 9th, 1963.
Now, there are a number of stories about spirits in this building. Is Mr. Sari thought to be one of them?
Oh, he's here.
He is here.
He's here, yeah.
And who else?
There's
is thought to be
11
here?
confirmed spirits in this, and a cat. 11, yeah.
11 spirits and a cat?
Yeah, and a cat. I actually have a list I'll give you guys. Yeah, all the Pierces are here. Rachel Pierce, which was Edward's daughter.
Well, they love their home.
Why would they leave? Their whole family's here. Why would they leave?
Yeah.
You know, there's some servants here too.
Tell us about maybe some of the odd things that have happened. Give us a couple of stories of things that...
Oh my God, how much time you got?
We have a half hour, so go right ahead.
Oh my goodness. You mean like hauntings or like...
Yeah. I think that's going to catch a lot of people's
Many
interest.
apparitions.
Yeah.
Many apparitions. I've got pictures of things that we can't explain. People having their hair pulled, me having my hair pulled. My hair was actually picked up and then dropped. And somebody was
Can't
looking
do that
at
to me.
No. Somebody was actually looking at me. She's like, oh. And then all of a sudden I felt dropped.
Oh, no
We've been
kidding.
poked. I've actually had my jacket pulled down in the basement and I fell backwards and brought myself forward. People have seen black shadows, arms reaching out.
You've spent the night here, though.
I just spent the night here a couple weeks ago with some friends. I slept great.
Yeah.
I slept great. The parlor over here is actually where they waked all of them. And there's a couch, and I slept right where the caskets were, and I slept great. I slept in the red room, I slept good. Eno's room, I slept good. Other people.
Now, the mansion has just gone through a 4-year restoration project
Yeah.
by the current owners.
Yeah, Rob and Allison Conti.
Okay. And what are their plans for this building going forward?
Right now it's open for tours.
Yeah.
But eventually they want it to be a haunted bed and breakfast. So, but that'll be next year. Just one step at a time.
But we were talking before we started the interview, and there's a lot of interest. People really want to see this building. Huh?
Oh my God, there is so many. Before we opened, there's about 2,000 or 3,000 people waiting. Now we're open up to 8,000 people waiting on a list.
Really?
And I'm sure it's more by now.
Wow.
8,000 people waiting to come spend the night here. That's a lot. That's a lot.
And you've got tours how many times a week?
We have Wednesday, Thursday, 5 days a week,
Yeah.
2 to 3 tours in the afternoons and at night. Halloween, I'm going to have, they're already booked, 4 tours Halloween night. So,
And this is something you do just out of passion, out of interest?
me, myself,
Yeah.
I love this house. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been here 11 years. I love this house. And I like it. I like doing the tours. I like watching people's reactions to things and how they love the house and they, you know, some of them are here for the history, not the ghosts.
Now, who are some of the more famous names of people that have been to this
Visited
mansion?
here.
Yeah.
It's said that Calvin Coolidge, when he was a senator, was here. Minnesota Fats actually did play pool here, and he also played at some of the pool
halls in town?
In town, yep. Betty Davis, she went to Cushing Academy. She's been here.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
Yeah, it was. And then they say Norman Rockwell was here. Bailey from Barnum and Bailey Circus was good friends with one of the previous owners. And he was always come here and he would bring eccentric things to them. And that's why we have a Fiji mermaid over there.
Now, there have been a few books written about the SK Pierce Mansion. Let's talk about Ken Watson's book, which we have here on the table. Why don't you grab it?
Yeah.
It's called History of the Victorian Mansion.
Yeah.
Ken, when did he write that?
I'm going to say he probably finished it 3 years ago.
Yeah, what was his involvement with the mansion itself?
His involvement was he restored it. He did most of the work in the house.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Mainly by himself. I mean, we had roofers and electricians and all that,
Sure.
but he did like the woodwork and the floors and the ceilings and all the walls, and yeah, he did it by himself on top of a full-time job.
Sadly, he passed away recently.
2 weeks ago today.
2
he
weeks
passed
ago.
away.
Okay.
He had cancer.
But this book by Mr. Watson is available for purchase here.
Yep. Or you can go on. I was going to say his
Amazon
website,
or
but
something.
I can't.
Yeah.
His wife is trying to work it out now, how to get everybody to do it online.
The Victorian Mansion, the SK Pierce Victorian Mansion is, and I read this, so you can confirm it. It's deemed the second most haunted house in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I actually just read that online the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And number 9 in the country.
Yeah.
So it's got some cachet, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got some pretty truth to it.
Yeah.
I hope something happens for you while you're here, Scott.
I do too. Well, Mr. Pierce was a Freemason, and I happen to be one, so I figure I'm in good shape.
Oh.
If people want more information about the mansion, if they would like a tour, where do they go to
You're
find
going to go
this?
to the website, the Haunted Victorian Mansion website, and look up tours, and then you just book online. It's $25.
Uh-huh.
Takes about an hour. Then we give you 20 minutes of free time to walk around and do whatever you want free time.
And we're going to do that. We're going to take some time with Marion to walk around and have her give us a tour of the mansion.
Sounds great.
So let's get ourselves ready and gather ourselves up, and we'll go do that. Thank you,
All right,
Marion,
sounds
for the
good.
conversation, and
Thank you.
I look forward to the
All
tour.
right. Thank you.
Now, this is the room where we conducted our sit-down interview, Marion, but we want you to take us through it and then
right.
through some of the other rooms in the house.
All
So
right, well,
take it away.
sounds good. This is actually the men's parlor. It would have been Mr. Pierce's parlor. Everything that you see in here, like all the woodwork and stuff, is all original to the house. The fireplaces are all original. They were coal operated at the time, but then they were wood, but they don't work anymore. Over here we have the Fiji mermaid. She actually came because the owners now are really into freaky clowns and freaky stuff, and they've had that for 10 years. And then they found out that Bailey from Barton and Bailey Circus visited here all the time, so they thought, wow, that's a great place for her to be. So here she is.
And I love the piano.
The piano did not come with the house. Piano came with a good friend of ours, Eva. She loved the house, so she donated the piano. But Eva just last November passed away from cancer also. But it's gonna be tuned this weekend, so people will actually play it better than they have been. So let's go this way. Sound good? We'll go into the ladies' parlor. And this is actually the ladies' parlor. This would have been Susan's parlor, but as I told you guys, she died 2 weeks after it was finished. So Ellen up here is the second wife. You can see that she's actually much younger than Mr. Pierce. I think she's beautiful. This fireplace in here is marble. It's the only marble fireplace in the house. The other 3 are slate. And we actually call this the artifacts room now because of all this stuff that you see here. Kenny found like in the walls, in the floors, in the basement behind things. We found children's clothing above the kitchen sink. This woman's like a neck thing that was scarf, found that upstairs. Right here is what the factory looked like back in the day before it burnt down. It's 4 floors. I'll bring you into the dining room real quick. We'll buzz through there. This is the dining room. Actually, this is where the little boy has been seen in the window quite often by the neighbor next door. If the book bone's in the basement, he's been seen in this window right here. He's also been seen in that window right there by the people that live there. He's waving to them and they'll wave back. This piano here is not original to the house. The previous owners actually found it on Craigslist and they went to get it up in New Hampshire. And when they got there, it was out on the front porch and she asked them, why is it on the porch? And they said, because it's haunted and we don't want it. So she thought it best that she bring it here. Come with another ghost. So this is actually 2 of the children that are in the house. We have Gordon, he drowned in the pond down the street. And then we have Rachel, which was Edward Pierce's daughter. They're actually, all the Pierces are actually buried right down here in the cemetery. This is the servants' staircase, but we're gonna take the main staircase, okay? This is the red room. This is both wives' room. They had separate rooms for Mr. Pierce. There's a rumor going around that it was a brothel. It never was a brothel. There's a rumor going around that a prostitute died in here and was shoved in the closet. That never happened. This is the room that Mimi and Ken always slept in. While they were sleeping, they feel pushing on the bed, something crawling up in between them. When Kenny was here by himself one time, he's sleeping this way, facing the hallway. Something climbed into bed with him, and he's like, oh, and actually spooned with them. He slept the best he's ever slept that night. The numbers on the doors, it's because it was the Victorian Inn, and then it was a rooming house, so they all have numbers. Outside each doorway, you're gonna notice his name plaques. That's Ellen's room. Maddie's room will go in next. This is Maddie Cornwell's room. She was actually the nanny of the house. She had her own room. Her bureau was built into the wall right there. And behind the bureau is the fireplace downstairs. She had heated clothing. And yeah, right? For a nanny, she had it pretty good. It's not as beautiful and grand in here, like the woodwork and stuff, but it's still pretty nice.
And she is said to be one of the...
She's one of the spirits in the house, yes. Behind you right here on the walls, it's a speaking tube. It goes to Mr. Pierce's room. If you actually talk into it from here, and I'm in there, I'll actually hear you talking. This is the dumbwaiter that came up from the basement to the pantry to here. So the laundry would probably come up through here, the baby's stuff, because the nursery is right here, and she took care of the babies. And the creek is perfect. And this is the nursery. If you were anybody back in the day, you had a sink in your room, and right here is there's a sink here for Maddie to take care of the babies, whatever, you know. Can I tell you a story about what happened in here with the previous owners, if that's okay? It's kind of a spooky story. He worked from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. He worked from home. Right where you're standing was his desk. He's working away from home. And then in the other room, they had like 2 little white Bichon dogs, Casper and Wendy. He saw the dogs laying on the floor over there, and something was rubbing their belly. He could see their skin moving. And he's like, well, all right, that's kind of cool. A couple days later, he's working from home again, and a full-blown apparition came right up out of the floor right here. And then it dropped back down in. And he's like, oh my God, did I just see that? So he stopped working, went across the street to the pizza place to have lunch. As he's walking over there, an ambulance leaves. He's talking to Chris, the owner over there. He said, oh my God, Chris, you're not gonna believe what I just saw. And he's like, what did you see? He said, I saw a apparition come up out of the floor by my desk. He had scraggly hair, overalls, and a white shirt. And Chris goes, you're not gonna believe what happened here. A man just had a heart attack and died in here. He had scraggly hair, white shirt, and blue overalls. I'm like, holy moly, why did he go from there to here within seconds and then just disappeared? Fell right back down into the floor. The pictures that you see on these, the owners are really into Disney and freaky stuff. Back about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess a little boy got eaten by an alligator in Disney. So they had to get rid of all of anything with kids and alligators in Disney World. So he thought it'd be great to buy the pictures and bring them up here and put it in the nursery. This is actually an original safe for Ellen Pierce. It's very heavy. Has her name on it. She would have had her papers probably in there, jewelry, whatever. Kenny actually sat down one day for 2 hours. He sat here and he figured out the combination. It's a letter, it's words instead of numbers. So he finally figured out the combination.
No kidding.
Yeah, right? It's pretty cool. I play this for people. It does work. I'll play it and show you guys. We don't usually let anybody else touch it. Ready? Pretty cool. This is Mr. Pierce's room. I want you to notice that right downstairs below us is actually the blue parlor, which was his room. His parlor, this is his bedroom, and above us is the billiards room. Everything faces his factory on this side of the house. That way he can keep track of his help, keep track of all that. Below us on the sidewalk right here, the front door, is the letter V. Underneath that is the tunnel that goes across the street. But it's caved in, which is a shame. And then we'll go into his office.
He kept himself dry on the way to work if it was raining.
Probably help came through there, whatever came through there, you know. He's the only one on this floor with a fireplace. All the other people had to, not even his wives didn't have a fireplace. They just had the little heaters that came up from the fireplaces downstairs. April 9th, 1963, Eno Sari burnt to death in here. He fell asleep smoking and drinking. This is the room that he died in. And I was just talking about the man that came up out of the floor across the way. This is what Edwin drew. This is what he saw. And he actually brought it to Chris that had the pizza place over here. And Chris goes, that's the man that died over here. So it's he's kind of icky, you know. The roofers, when they were here, they found this piece of burnt wood right outside here, so they figured they'd give it to me as a souvenir. I don't want it. So I gave it to the owners, and they actually framed it and left it here. We have trigger objects on the tray over there, cigarettes and alcohol, you know, when they want to speak to them, when the investigators come. Some kind lady was so kind enough to bring him an electric cigarette so he doesn't burn to death. We'll go upstairs to the 3rd floor, the servants' quarters. They would have had many beds in here, you know, many beds. This is a cistern over here. This collects rainwater from the roof. The pipes would be up through the attic. They would come down into here. It would fill up with water. It's still all levitating here. All the original, everything is still in here. When this one was full, in Maddie's room below us, there's 2 bolts on the floor by her bureau. You turn those bolts, this one empties out into the one in the basement. They had running water in the 1800s. So here is Susan and Sarah's room, 2 of the servants. It's a pretty room. This was the room that needed the most renovations in it. The wall was eaten out by the pigeons and stuff that were living upstairs. So Kenny thought that because it's Susan and Sarah's room, he'll make it beautiful for them. Did a good job. He even gave them a closet. There was no closet here. He built them a closet. This is Mr. Pierce's man cave, billiards room. Like I said, everything faces his factory. All of his famous elite guests would come here, play pool, cribbage, whatever they played back then. Poker? I don't know. But when Jane Semmerman owned the house, there was still a huge pool table up here. She hired an auctioneer to come in and sell everything, so she didn't want anything to do with the house anymore. The auctioneer literally ripped her off and took the pool table, all the chandeliers, everything that was worth something, and he gave her very, very little money for it all.
Now this is where, was it Minnesota Fats?
Yep, this is
pool.
yeah. Betty Davis, all of them came up here, and yeah, his man cave.
Oh.
Right? This is the head butler's room over here.
I need a 3rd floor in my house.
Yeah. This is Mr. Pierce's head butler's room. This would have been William's room. He did everything for Mr. Pierce. Anything Mr. Pierce needed, he was there for him. That's why he had his own room. So, and then right outside the hallway is a tower. It's a spiral staircase to go up. So look at the view. You can see everything from up here. His tower was to watch everything. And if you look at the chimneys over here, on all of them, can you see the V with the cross in the middle for the Freemasons built into the chimney? We'll start over here. This is that picture that I showed you guys. This is where she was standing. Look how high this is. It's impossible. And the lady that took the picture was right there on that porch. And she's like, so there used to be 3 sinks here, soap sinks, but we just got rid of them. I don't even know. But Bones in the Basement, the book, Lillian found an actual bone digging in that kiln right behind you. It was full of ashes. One day she was down here. Something told her to clean it out, so she's in here cleaning it out. And she found, actually, there's a picture of it upstairs. She found a bone. Edwin was going to the doctor the next day over at Gardner Hospital. So he brought it over there to his doctor. And his doctor's like, where did you get that? And she says, I dug it out of, my wife dug it. He says, that's about a 16-year-old's female pelvic bone. He says, okay. So he brought it home, and like the next week, Ghost Hunters was coming with Jason and Grant, and they showed it to them, and they took it. They were going to send it to forensics in New York, but we haven't seen it since. That was 11 years ago. It's gone. It's gone. But we have pictures. So, but this is where she dug it. Remember I told you guys about the cistern up on the 3rd floor that fills up with rainwater? This is the one that it will pour into. This one here, it would fill up. Here's the pipe. It will go down, and this whole thing would fill with water. It's full of shutters now, but we'll get rid of them. And this is the dumbwaiter. Goes from here to the 2nd floor. We just had French drains put in last week. Behind you, above this doorway right here, is the original call system. I don't know if you guys ever watched Downton Abbey, but if these right here, there would be a bell on them, and if somebody wanted something, the little tag would, would ring. We figured when we were doing it, we'd just leave them. Pretty big, and the tunnel's on the other side of this wall. It would have gone through here across the street. The city caved it in, of course, but eventually we're going to actually cut out like a 3-foot by 3-foot section, and we're going to put a piece of plexiglass there and then put a light in there so everybody could see where the tunnel was. It goes as far as the stairs out front. You could see something, but you can't see the whole thing, of course. And this is actually where they had the coal, because the furnace there right now is actually new. There was this huge round furnace sitting right there, and they would shovel coal into it, and that's how they heated the house. The coal would be here. People that used to live next door here, actually, I met them recently, and they said when they were younger, they used to watch Edward Pierce over here shoveling coal into the furnace to heat the house. Kind of interesting. And that's it, guys. You have been through the whole house. And you survived.
This is incredible.
You gotta come back at night. It's a totally different feel.
I'll bet, yeah.
Totally different feel.